Hello everybody and welcome from me and Dimitri to this week's Easy 11 Plus live lesson. It's fantastic to see you all. Olga Simonova in the comments, yes, I read the Cyrillic, says that their father is called Dimitri. Dimitri, you have a child. I didn't think that was possible. It's wonderful to have you all here. Anyway, I'm very much looking forward to this week's lesson. We're going to be looking at some verbal reasoning. If you want a wide range of fantastic resources to help you prepare for the 11 Plus exam, just go and have a look at the RSL Educational website. A big welcome to Sandy Singh, or Sandy Singh's child, who says in the comments that this is their very first live lesson. It's wonderful to have you here. Dimitri wants to go. It's extremely hot in here. I'll let Dimitri go. Just give me a moment. I'm going to close the door and then pull the fan across so that I don't die during this lesson, which will be unnecessarily dramatic. And then we'll get started. Just bear with me a second. So that's the banging of me closing the door and Dimitri going out. And that's the whooshing of me moving the fan across. And no doubt the fan blowing all over the microphone. And here I am, ready to start. So this week we are looking at some of a verbal reasoning practice paper that's on the CGP website. And you can go and look at CGP and their no doubt wonderful products on their website. We're going to have a look at some of the questions here, which are a good example of the kinds of things that might well turn up in an 11 Plus exam. I probably should have tinkered with my settings because, as you can see, my hair is magically disappearing against my green screen. But never mind, at least it doesn't look green. It just makes me look a little bit grayer than I already am. So I'm going to make this quite a short lesson because it's really, really hot in here, and I'm just going to start sweating and collapsing if you go on for too long. So I'm going to aim, I'm going to aim to get this done within about half an hour. Okay, so it'll be nice and short and hopefully sweet. Right, so I'm not going to go through all the questions in this paper. By the way, it's linked in the video description underneath if you want to look at these questions yourself. My hair really is disappearing, wow. We're just going to go through a few of them. I think I've selected 9 questions to look at. Now, what I want you to think about is not whether you got the answer right or not. It's fantastic if you did. It's fantastic if you can see the answer straight away. But that isn't the point. The point of this is to show you how to think about non-verbal reasoning questions in your 11 Plus exam. And what I want you to take away from this is not, as I say, what the right answers are, but how you think about any kind of non-verbal reasoning question. And my plan is to look at 9 questions today and then come back probably next week and look at the second half of this paper. We're looking at the first few sections here. So find the figure like the first two. And the first thing you should always do is read the instructions. And they always give you an example to help you understand. For each question below, there are 2 figures that are like each other in some way. Okay, so that's the figures on the left here. Find which of the 5 figures on the right is most like the 2 figures on the left. So we've got to choose one of the options on the right that fits with the set of figures on the left-hand side. Now there's one part of this question that I don't think is quite right, which is this, in some way. Because often you'll find that there are several options that are like the figures in some way. Really, it should be in some ways, I think, because you're looking for the best match that matches the 2 figures in the greatest number of different ways. And it's that breaking things down into different ways that we're going to be focusing on today. So let's skip straight to question 1. Let's not worry about the example. So question 1, we've got 2 triangles on the left. So you might immediately say, well, it's clearly a triangle, but that's leaving you with B and with D. So it doesn't really help. So what can we do about this? Let's start again. We've got 2 figures on the left. They are both triangles and they have different patterns in them. So it isn't going to be the pattern, but it's almost certainly going to be the fact that it's a triangle. I don't really see how something that isn't a triangle is going to belong in this set. It's unlikely. So let's get rid of everything on the right that isn't a triangle. But we've got 2 triangles here, and they're stripy, but only one of the figures on the left is stripy. So the pattern within can't be the thing that we're looking for. So what might we be looking for? What do the figures on the left have in common? I'm not sure. They're just 2 triangles with different patterns. So now we look at the options on the right to see whether that will help us. What's different about these 2 triangles? Well, they're both isosceles triangles. You can see the line of symmetry there, and you can see the line of symmetry there. So that isn't it. What other... my rubber isn't working. I don't mind. Has it? Yeah, it's done its freezing thing, but it'll unfreeze in a bit. What other thing do the triangles on the left have in common? Well, they both got their flat base towards the bottom. And only B, oh there we go, it's unfrozen, only B matches that. D doesn't. So what we've done here is we thought very systematically. We thought what rule definitely applies, and we can be virtually certain that the answer has to be a triangle. So that's given us a start. And we got rid of all the ones that don't match. And then we've looked at the patterns, that doesn't work. Then we looked at whether they're isosceles, that doesn't work. Then we looked at the fact that the bases face the bottom, and that does work, and that gets us to the answer. So going back to the question, we're actually looking for the ways in which a figure on the right matches the set of figures on the left, because it will rarely just be one rule. That would be too easy. The thing is, these are supposed to be some kind of intelligence test. Really, they're a test of whether you've learnt this method. They're a test of whether you've learnt to break these questions down into steps. So let's have a look at the next one, number 2. I've put ticks next to the ones I want to cover. So number 2, we can see that, well, they have different numbers of dots. They're both circles, but all the options on the right are circles. That doesn't help us. They both have a solid line through them. They both have a solid line, and they both have dotted lines. So we look at the right-hand side. Well, D doesn't have a solid line. It doesn't have a dotted line, but all the others do. So that doesn't really help us. The number of dots, that doesn't really help us. The number of lines, they're different, 2 and 3. And this is where playing with ideas can be helpful. Just throwing some ideas out and toying with them. Because we've just said there are 2 lines here and there are 3 lines here. There are also 2 dots here and 3 dots here. So what can we see on the left? We can see that the number of lines, whatever kind of line there might be, is the same as the number of dots. So let's get rid of everything on the right that doesn't have the same number of dots as the number of lines. So A has 3 dots and 2 lines. B has 3 lines. It might look like 6, but it's actually 3 lines intersecting and 2 dots. C has 4 dots and 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, so we can leave that one in. D has 3 dots and 2 lines. E has 4 dots and 2 lines. So in fact, just that one rule got us to the answer. So here it was simply a matter of having the same number of dots as lines in the figure. So that was relatively straightforward. So for this one, we did only need to find one way in which they matched. But the rule that we were applying wasn't necessarily a very obvious one. But you get there by playing with ideas, by going, well, there were 2 dots and 3 dots. There are 2 lines, there are 3. Oh, and there's a pattern. So let your mind play with things a bit. My hair's going ludicrously see-through now. Oh, and over to my chin as well. I should have adjusted my green screen settings before I started, but oh well, it's a bit too late now. Let's just carry on. 4. So what can we say about these figures on the left? Well, they've both got these 3-headed arrows pointing upwards. So that does seem to be a consistent pattern here. So let's get rid of all the options on the right that doesn't have that. When you find something really clear and straightforward like that, it's almost certainly going to apply. So we can get rid of that and we can get rid of that. So we've got 3 left, B, C and E. What are the differences between B, C and E? Well, B has got 2 shapes that are the same, C has got 3 different, and E has got 3 different. Looking at the figures on the left, well, this one here has got 2 shapes that are the same but differently patterned. This one's got 2 shapes that are different and differently patterned. But the one thing that they have in common is that there are 2 of them. And also that one is white and one is half black and half white. Looking on the right, well, B fits that. We've got 2 shapes. One is white, one is half black and one white. C is 3 shapes and E is 3 shapes. So B is really standing out here as the correct answer. We can be pretty confident of that one. Let's push on. So I haven't selected any more from this section. I said I wanted to move quite quickly. If we do it in less than half an hour, that's also absolutely fine. I'm very, very happy with this being a nice short lesson. That's no problem whatsoever. My face is disappearing so much. I'm going to take a moment just to try and adjust my green screen settings. So let's see whether I just create an absolute disaster here. So let's have a look at my key settings. Right, let's play with the similarity. So if I turn that up, it makes it worse. If I turn it down, that's more. Oh, I'm coming back. I'm undisappearing. Marvelous. Fantastic. The edge of my hair is a little bit green, but I can cope with that. I'm not vain. Not that vain. Good, excellent, problem solved. I should have done that before I started. You just see a little bit of the green screen coming from my hair now. Very, very elegant, I think. Step 2, complete the series. Each of these questions has 5 squares on the left that are arranged in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One of the squares is missing, that would be that one. One of the squares on the right should go in its place. So we need to choose which square on the right goes into this place here. Nice and straightforward. It's quite easy to understand, but always read the instructions in case it looks like a familiar question type, but isn't. Which ones did I select here? I selected number 3. So let's look at number 3. I must have selected it for a reason. What is going on here? So we need to look through the options on the left and see what kinds of patterns we might identify. All of them have 5 lines going across. It's kind of a bit abacus-like, like a sort of sideways abacus. I have to be honest, I don't know how to use an abacus. I've never learned. Anyway, what can we see? So all of them have got 4 white dots, all of them have got 1 black dot, all of them have got 1 grey dot. That's one thing I notice, actually, as I look through this. I notice that the grey dot goes up, up, and then appears on the bottom. It's as though it's gone up and then it's popped up from the bottom. So I've got something to play with. Let's see what happens if I look at the black dot. It goes up, then it appears on the bottom, and then it goes up. So is what's happening here that they're moving up each time, and when they go off the top, they reappear on the bottom row? So that's my hypothesis. It's something that I wonder whether is true, and now I'm going to test it. So I'm going to test it. I found that that works for the grey and black dots, so that's pretty good. What happens to the white dots? So let's pretend we can't see those. So I'm just looking at this one on the left here. So I've got the 3 white dots here, and then I've got this white dot here. So this one, if it goes up and reappears at the bottom, I'd expect it to appear here. And yes, it does. And then going on to the next one, I've now got the white and black on the top. I'd expect them to appear at the bottom. And yes, they do. And so on. So this is what's happening. With each step, we're shoving everything up 1 row, and when they go off the top, they reappear at the bottom. So once you've got the hang of that, then it's just a matter of once you've identified that pattern, it's just a matter of being careful and checking what we expect to see. And that's the thing. I think you want to look and see, what we expect to find. So why don't we do a little sketch? Nothing wrong with doing this. It can be useful. So let's do our 5 rows. So at the moment, we've got this white one on the top. So we want that to reappear at the bottom. So that's going to be here, more or less. And then this grey one here is going to move up 1 row. This black one here is going to move up 1 row. I can't distinguish the black and grey really, but never mind. This white one's going to move up 1 row. And then these 2 white ones here are going to move up 1 row as well. So we've got 2 rows of 3, essentially. Row of 3 and row of 3. 2 diagonals of 3, let's call it that way. So A has 2 diagonals of 3, but they aren't in the right place. B has 2 diagonals of 3, and they seem to be in the right place, but if we can check here, it should be the black in the middle, not the grey in the middle. C looks really good. So for C, we have the 3 white ones there, and then we have white, black, grey here. So C is the correct answer here. So there are different ways of approaching these things. The starting point for this wasn't finding multiple rules. It was looking at them and saying, what sorts of patterns can I see? And the first pattern that I noticed was this thing of the grey dots. And then I thought, well, why is this one down here? And then I thought, well, hang on, this one's at the top. There's nowhere for it to go, so it had to go to the bottom. Ah, is that a pattern? You might also notice, I should have commented on this actually, these 4 white ones going up each time. So you start to notice things like that. Then you don't just jump to the answer. Then you form a hypothesis. You say, I think that's what is happening is this. And then with other parts of the pattern, you test it. And when you're sure of it, you think what should go next, which was this stage, and then you look for the answer on the right. Now in an exam, by the time you're already very good at doing this, turning all Antipodean, by the time you're very good at doing this in the exam, you might be able to skip some of these steps. Your brain might do some of them for you a little bit more quickly, but never in practice. And when you're in the exam, you should try to avoid skipping more steps than you have to. Be systematic and just practice getting faster at your systems. 4, I picked because it's a little bit different, but fundamentally shows the same thought process. So what have we got in 4? We have got cubes. Cubes, lovely cubes. Now, cube questions can be very easy for people who are very good at imagining shapes in 3D. And conversely, they're very difficult for people who are bad at that. But that doesn't need to be the way that it is, because you should just approach it logically. Rather than trying to manipulate the cube in your head, just take one element at a time and think about it. So, what's going on here? This first cube, we can see that there's a stripy face there. And we can also see that cube 2 has got a stripy face there. And it seems to be the same stripy face because we can draw the direction of the arrows, of the dashes. Something strange is happening here, there we are. So we can see that those seem to be, or are very likely to be, the same face. What's going on? Oh, my thing's frozen again. Oh, there we are. It's partly because it's extremely hot, so my little tablet has got an excessive tendency to overheat. Go Microsoft hardware. Anyway, so what does it look like? It looks a bit as though this cube is being rotated on its side, like that, turned around on the table. So in that case, in the next one, the stripy thing would be at the back. Then in the next one, it would be on this side. And then the next one, it would be on the front. And the stripes are on the front here. So that first hypothesis, that guess that the cube is being turned round, can I do, yeah, for you it's this way, isn't it? The cube's being turned round that way, actually, oh dear, because of the blowing fan, you're seeing a little bit to the edge of my green screen. Can't have that. Outrageous. There we are. It's vanished. So that seems to work. Now let's check with some other things. So what else can we see? If it's being turned round like that, we'd expect this face here with a cross in it to go onto this side. And it does. So that seems to be supported. And the cross should be next to the stripes, as is the case here, and that is the case there. So everything seems to fit this hypothesis that the cube is being turned around like that by one, by what? One little turn, by 90 degrees each time. Right, so now the question is, what do we expect? Well, what can we see? We can see there's the circle here. So we expect the circle, let's do a quick cube sketch, but make it a little bit bigger for clarity. Beautiful, beautiful cube. We expect the circle to go onto this side here. So let's rule out all the options on the right that don't have a circle there. So that's not C and that's not E. Okay. And what do we expect to be on this face here? Well, we don't know what's on that face here because it's hidden, so we don't know what's going to turn in. But whatever is on this face here is next going to end up on the left-hand side. And that's that. So we expect that to be on the front now. Let's go to these things. So let's draw that on. And does that option exist? Yes, it does. It's option A, not B or D. So therefore we choose option A. In an exam, you will be able to do this more quickly. Not because you'll be rushing, but because you won't be explaining it to your genius audience on YouTube. So don't worry about the fact that that's taken me a few minutes. That isn't the situation that you're going to be in the test. But again, it's about being systematic. It's about looking at what's changing. It's about forming guesses, then testing those guesses until you're quite confident, then thinking what's going to go in the gap. And I strongly recommend that you at least partially follow that what should go in the gap thought process for questions like these. Often it's very useful to start by looking through the options on the right and seeing what might fit. But there are so many possibilities here. How do you choose between them before you've had to think about what you expect to find? And even just that first step of saying, well, that circle here is going to be on this side here. You see me wiggling my pointer around. gets you to just 3 of the options on the right. Then what's the difference between them? It's what's on the front. What do we expect to be on the front? Well, it's what's going to be on this edge next, and that's the dotted line one. Things you don't need to do here. This is going back to where I started about imagining things in 3D. At no stage of this do you have to imagine what the whole cube looks like. All we're doing is just shifting one side at a time, or one face at a time if you're going to use the right. Cube language. Sandy Singh is Messi's son. I didn't know that Lionel Messi's surname was Singh, but you learn a new thing every day. I like the fact that you're doing Grigri and Dimitri creative writing in the comments. Top stuff. Okay, right. Onwards. Oh yeah, question 8. Okay. So, what is going on here? We have a teardrop which points up, then left, then down, then somewhere, then up. So I reckon we can be very sure the teardrop's going to have its pointy bit in that direction. So it isn't going to be C and it isn't going to be D. What else do we notice? We notice that we're alternating. Well, hang on. We notice that we got white, 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 and then we got a teardrop here that's got lines across it. If the teardrop here were white, then you'd have white, stripy, white, white, white. Where's the pattern? The stripy one's just in a random place. For this to be a pattern, we have to have a stripy teardrop here. Because otherwise, it just doesn't make any sense. Then we got alternating. White, stripy, white, stripy, white. Stripy, white, and so on. So we need a stripy one. Let's get rid of B. So now we've got A and E, which are both a teardrop and both with the pointy bit to the right. And this is going back to what I was saying at the beginning, that often there are several different rules overlapping and you have to apply them one rule at a time. We worked on the direction of the teardrop, we worked on whether the teardrop is stripy or not. Now, let's look at the options on the right. What is the difference between these options? By the way, in the cube one, we went all the way to guessing what should be in the gap before we looked at the right-hand side. For this one, it kind of makes sense to look at the right-hand side as we go, because there are different rules and we can apply each rule one at a time, and that gets rid of more options until we've only got 2 left now. What's the difference between A and E? The difference is simply that the stripes run in different directions. Here they run in this direction, here they run in this direction. Bizarre things going on in my PDF, but anyway, never mind. So which is it going to be? What's happening over here? We got this direction, we got this direction, we got this direction, we got something, and then we got this direction. So we got sideways, diagonal, bottom left to top right, vertical, so they're turning round like this. Jump, bum, 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 but it's going to be that way. So we're going to be diagonal that way, and that matches option A, but not option E. Of course, in an exam, you don't need to cross out the wrong answers to get the mark. You just need to choose the correct answer. But the crossing out really helps us as we're working our way towards the answer. Section 3 is the last section we're looking at. So I told you we'd move quickly. I might not quite make it by past, but we're going to be close. And it is hot in here, so I think I made the right choice to make this a short one. Okay, so let's look at the instructions here. For each of the questions below, there are 3 figures that are like each other in some way. Find which of the 5 figures on the right is most like the 3 figures on the left. So here it's very, very obvious. All of these figures are the same. They're just rotations of each other. And C is the only one that matches. So the example is very, very obvious. Let's look at something less obvious. Option 3 is, in fact, very similar. So if you look at these, if you look at them hard enough, you'll realise that these are also rotations of each other, but they're fiddlier rotations. So let's take the time to look at it, because rotation is a tricky skill. Now, remember what I said about cubes? Some people are just really good at visualising the whole cube in their mind, and then they just turn it around in their magic imagination and the answer pops out. But the rest of us aren't so good at that. But that doesn't matter, because it's just about doing things systematically in stages. It isn't about having a fantastic capacity for 3D visualization. And this is similar. You don't need to be able to turn everything around in your mind. You just need to be able to work systematically and clearly. All of these have a light grey. Let's imagine this is a claw, like a hand, but it's more claw-like. It's like Wolverine's claw, isn't it? So let's imagine it like that so I can label it. And we'll call this the cuff. So the cuff is light grey, whereas here C is clearly black. So let's get rid of that straight away. What do we notice about the things on the right? They've got different numbers of lines, 3, 3, 4, 2. I'm talking about the lines on the back of the hand. So here we've got 3, 3, 4 and 2. What's happening on the left? 3, 3, 3. So we can get rid of 4 and we can get rid of 2. So it's just A or B. Now, rather than looking on the left-hand side, let's look at the options and let's ask ourselves what is different about them, because they look really similar, don't they? They look really similar. The cuff looks the same. They've each got 3 lines on the back of the hand. What about the claws? So we got 4 in the middle and long bits at the side. Here we've got 4 in the middle and long bits at the side. That's the same. But oh, where's the black? So here we got black on the right, black on the right, black on the right, black on the right. Here we got black on the right, black on the left, black on the left, black on the right. So here we got a regular white, black, white, black, white, black, white, black, and here we got a bit of chaos. What's going on the left-hand side? White, black, white, black, white, black, white, black. Here we got white, black, white, black, white, 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 black, and here the same. So it's going to be the nice regular one, option A. What have we done there? We have not at any point rotated the figure in our minds. We didn't need to. All we did is look at one characteristic at a time and look for ones on the right that don't match, and then we cross them out. And in the end, you're left with option A. That kind of method is actually likely to favour people who don't try to do it all in their mind. Because if you're trying to rotate this in your mind, if you have a doubt or you get distracted or you become unsure about something, it all just falls apart and you've got to start again. Whereas if you're using a systematic method like this, you just take each thing, and once you've solved one part of it, for example, you've got rid of the thing with the black cuff, or you've got rid of the ones with 4 or 2 veins on the backs of the hands, you've done that. You don't need to worry about that, and then you can go on to the next characteristic. Option 4, what have we got here? We have got 3 shapes on the left. They're all mostly grey. Possibly a quarter of each of them is white, although it's impossible to tell for this one. But they're mostly grey. They all have at least one line of symmetry. Yeah. What's going on the right? So we've got lots of lines of symmetry, but only one of them is mostly grey. That's option C. And so surely that can be the only answer. I don't really see anything else that could define this. Sometimes the answer really is quite simple. That's good, but just take a moment to stop and check that you haven't missed something. Here they're very different shapes. They don't all have a line through the middle, so this one doesn't. Yeah, there isn't really anything else to go on. Option C it is. 5. What else have I got? Is it just 5? Yeah, it's just 5. This is the last one we're looking at today. I told you it would be nice and quick. Okay, what have we got going on here? So each of these on the left have 2 shapes and a line running through. 2 shapes and a line running through, and one shape is white and one shape is grey. Looking on the right, 2 shapes and well, that's annoying because they all follow that. But what else? On the left, so we got the little triangle is in front of the circle. The little rectangle is in front of the big rectangle. The little oval, so the smaller shape is in front of the bigger shape. But that seems to be the case here. D, I think this is a bit smaller, and that's in front. So that doesn't really help us either. So at this point, you might be getting a little bit stuck. What's the line doing? So the line here runs through things. It always runs through things. So at this point, I'm not getting very far looking at the left-hand side over here. So let's look at the right-hand side here. And let's see if we can start to spot some things that are different. We're here in A, so we've got the line running through and we've got the little shape up there. In B, we've got the line running through the little shape, but not the big shape. In C, it's running through the big shape, but not the little shape. Seems to be a difference in what the line runs through. Let's go back to the left-hand side. So it's just about finding things to spark ideas. So we got that idea. What is the line going through? So here, now, the line goes through the outside, the little shape, the big shape, and the outside. The outside, the big shape, the little shape, and the outside. The outside, the big shape, the little shape, and the outside. Is that the same on the right? No. This goes through the outside, the big shape, and the outside. It doesn't go through the little shape. Here, it doesn't go through the big shape. Here, it doesn't go through the little shape. Here, it doesn't go through the big shape. In E, it goes through the outside, the big shape, the little shape, and the outside. You could say it goes through the big shape in 2 places, but I don't think that's relevant. I think the point here is that the line goes through everything. And that is the only common characteristic that I can find on the left. So you could say that this is several separate rules. I would say this is really one rule. The line goes through everything. And that's what you need it to be. So sometimes with these, you're going to have multiple rules that you need to separate out. Sometimes it's going to be one rule. When there is more than one rule, make sure that you separate it. Make sure that you do one thing at a time. If it's just one rule, but it's a difficult one to find, as here, then you need to be creative about it. You need to really think what's going on and try things out. So we tried the small shape being in front, didn't help. We tried things with the line. Then we thought, okay, we're going to look at the right-hand side. What's different about the lines here? What do the lines go through? And we just got through a few of those and we realised that actually what the line goes through might be important. Then we went back to the left, worked out what the lines went through, and that got us our answer. So it's that way of thinking systematically, breaking things into stages, doing things in steps, and when you do that, the answer has a tendency to fall out. It's all a test of whether you can be systematic. Non-verbal reasoning is, in my opinion, a complete load of nonsense. It's supposed to be some kind of fair test of intelligence, so it's somehow better than doing maths or English, that you might learn better at a better school and less well at a less good school, and so it's supposed to be fair. It isn't at all. Anybody can learn this way of thinking, and anybody who has learned this way of thinking about non-verbal reasoning is likely to do well in non-verbal reasoning tests. I think that non-verbal reasoning is really, really stupid because it forces you to spend time practicing these puzzles, which, while they can be entertaining, are a total waste of time and a complete waste of your evenings and your practice time and your homework time. You might as well be practicing something useful like maths or English, or doing something even more useful like going outside and playing football with your friends. Anyway, rant over. You wonder why I don't do non-verbal reasoning very often on my channel. This is part of the reason. I think it is a total waste of everybody's time, and I'm very, very hostile to it. Normally at this point, I would give a tip of the week, but I'm not going to this time because, as I said, I wanted this to be a short lesson. I'm going to achieve it. It's going to be a short lesson. I don't see any fantastically important questions in the comments, which, by the way, I'm very grateful for. Thank you for not asking any important questions. Someone asked what my maths course is called. My general 11 plus course is called 11 plus Lifeline. Have a look at the RSL Educational website, linked down there, if you want to find out all about it. And that's got loads of maths. I've also got books. I've got, there's one book for maths, one for GCSE as well, but one book for 11 plus maths. But the main thing to look at is 11 plus Lifeline, which will cover pretty much everything that you want. But there are lots of other things on my website. Go and have a look. That could be my tip of the week. Look at my website. Lots of fantastic things there. RSL Educational, don't forget the all.co.uk. All right, everybody, fantastic. I look forward to seeing you next week for the next Easy 11 Plus live lesson presented by me and either Dimitri or Griri, depending on who's willing. And we will, I think, look at some more of this paper. Toodaloo.